Hello and welcome back to Football 301. I'm your host, Nate Tice. Today, going to be looking at the biggest concern for every contender left in the NFL. Starting to get narrower as we're in December. We're starting to drop off teams. The Colts did us a little bit of a favor. I only can keep one eyeball on them a little bit. Dolphins have been doing that a little bit the last few weeks, although they've done some interesting things. But today, going to be looking at each of the teams that we determined that are already in the playoffs, have a chance to win the Super Bowl, maybe a couple others we're going to get to, and their biggest concern that we have with 3 weeks left to go in the regular season. To help me do that, to help me to go over the concerns for all of these teams, is my guy, Mr. Matt Harmon. How you doing today, Matt?
Nate, I'm doing great. Yeah, talking about some of these teams, very interesting exercise because some of them, when we decided to split things up by AFC, NFC, I'm going to handle the AFC. Spoiler alert! I know you're hosting the show, but now I just went ahead and said that.
I probably would forget that. I'd probably forget that table setting anyway. So thank you for bringing the
whatever. That's what I'm here for. So when I did the AFC, it was like some of these easy. A couple of them were more difficult, which is why this is a fun exercise to do.
It is. Yeah. I always kind of like doing these because then you really focus in. You're like, oh, that's a little different than I thought. Or if, start diving into some of these numbers, maybe breaking them up by like last 6 weeks, last 8 weeks, maybe after a bye week or something like that. But like Matt said, dice these up. Matt's going to take the AFC teams. He's going to take the lead on the AFC teams. I might have some thoughts on them, and then I will take the lead on the NFC teams that we go over. Let's just get right into it. First off, going with the Buffalo Bills. So AFC team. So this will be Matt's lead. Really big win on Sunday for the Bills. Huge win against the Lions. Did some really cool stuff. Their offense is really clicking right now. Defense has moments as they're giving up 40 points a pop the last couple of games. But Matt, what is your biggest concern for the Bills team that seems to be firing on all cylinders, at least on offense?
Yeah, I mean, offensively, don't really have any big concerns about them. Look, they have the quarterback that I think it's either him or Lamar that's playing the best football in the NFL right now. It's one of those two guys. For me, I think Josh Allen and this offense, what's most exciting about it is that, and I've been writing about this a lot on the site, is that they can sting you in multiple different ways. And they've really shown that over the last 2 weeks. But so really no concerns offensively. Trying to guess which one of their pass catchers is going to pop off. That's a tough challenge. That's a concern, but that's not a concern for Buffalo.
It's not like it's your job or anything, Matt. Come on, man. Just every week. Who's the Packers pass catcher that's going to get all the points, and who's the Bills pass catcher that's going to get all the points?
And it's funny because I would argue that some of these crowded, we don't have a number one receiver teams. We have a bunch of good guys. It hasn't really worked out necessarily consistently for them. I'm thinking of like Chicago. I'm thinking of Indianapolis. Yeah. But Buffalo, it has worked out. And that's what happens when you have this guy at quarterback. You can pull this off. So, I no concerns offensively. To me, I think the minor nitpicks are probably on the defensive side here. If you do look since like week 10, they've actually been a worse pass defense than a run defense statistically. But you also look at some of the teams that they've run against. Obviously, I think the last two matchups, and even most of that is in negative game script for Detroit. So I'm not sure how much to like really lean into the stats and what they've allowed there. But I would still say that I'm a little bit concerned that like a tough physical run team can still take it to their defense. If you look at just how their run defense has performed on the season, they've allowed the 5th most yards on gap scheme runs, 5.0 yards per carry, but they're like 3.97 yards per carry on zone runs. And I think that makes sense with how this defense sort of plays. They're a lighter box unit. They're a lighter bodies unit. So you could think like, a team getting on the perimeter, they can probably still handle that. But, a few of the matchups even recently, before McCaffrey got hurt in the snow game, I think they were really running some man gap scheme stuff pretty well there. That was, I think, the best McCaffrey has looked in this very brief thing we can call his 2024 NFL season. I think the Rams run game was pretty successful. Just like the pass game was obviously the big highlight, but I think they set themselves up in some pretty decent down and distance situations because they were able to use a lot of those duo runs, the typical Rams stuff with Kyren Williams and these guys in week 14. Really didn't see it much in week 15 because Montgomery obviously got hurt and they fell behind quickly in that game. But I would say that if they run into a team in the postseason that, maybe Baltimore obviously would be on my radar there.
First team that came to my mind.
Yeah, that would obviously be on my radar there. None of the other teams, I'm like thinking of AFC contenders, really put the fear of God in me as a run team. Houston, definitely not. Chiefs, it's been efficient but not explosive. Even Pittsburgh, like their run game has kind of been hit or miss. The Broncos, we don't need to relitigate whether that's a good run game or not. The Chargers has even not been, like, you think Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh, their run game kind of stinks. So for the most part, like, really this is a Baltimore concern for Buffalo. I would say this is the thing that if I'm losing sleep at night, I'm losing, like, maybe my sleep score isn't trash because of this concern, but maybe I've got like a little bit of a wake time somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think that's where my eyes went too. Kind of just glancing at this team, and exactly with, who's concerning, like what would be a concerning matchup for them? Because I think what you said originally about the Bills offense, I feel great about where they stand, not just because they have an awesome quarterback, but because the offensive line is playing really well. They have so many different answers. They can get to so many different runs. They can get to a bunch of different formations, a bunch of different personnels. They can use tight ends, running back. Ty Johnson can torch man coverage now. Like that, I thought that was so funny. Like, doing all this stat data, diving into stats, breaking down. I'm like, oh man, how are they going to beat man coverage? It's like, just throw gadget or designer shots to Ty Johnson. Yeah, that'll do it. Oh, all right. Well, I guess that works. But no, I kind of went down the same path looking, run defense and big bully ball run offenses, like their defense against that, how will they hold up? And I was like, all right, well, who will give them issues? And I came down the same path. I was like, the Ravens. Oh, shoot. Okay, well, that's the one good team. Not good. And it's not like you can go, we take away the run and force Lamar to drop back. Not exactly how you want to live either. But I thought it was interesting too. So I totally agree with you. I'm down the same path with you as far as my concern for them, because I really don't have much with their offense right now. And also maybe their pressure rates. Like they don't blitz a ton. They don't get a ton of pressure, but it's gotten better. The last 4 or 5 weeks, blitzing and not blitzing, they don't blitz a ton at all, which was really interesting against the Lions because they threw in some funk that really, they got them too. They got a nice sack. They got some pressures on it, that's what is intriguing to me about this Bills defense is the layers that they add in these game plan situations. So might be interesting in the playoffs. Other quirk against the Lions. Big thing about the Bills defense under Sean McDermott has been that they base their defense out of nickel with 5 DBs against everything. Ran 6 plays of base defense with 3 linebackers. Now Matt Milano's healthy. He got hurt again on Sunday, but hopefully he's back healthy. He has a groin. But 3 linebackers on the field 6 times against the Lions. Really interesting to me. So I dove in. I was like, all right, have they done this before? Only 5 snaps of base in the previous 10 weeks. 15 snaps of base against the Ravens. So maybe they're working on something here. Maybe they're kind of going, all right, well, we got to add another personnel, another way to answer what the Ravens want to do to us in the playoffs. So just thought that was pretty interesting that going to something they haven't really gone before, probably because they have 3 playable linebackers now. So it makes a little bit of sense. But good one on the Bills there. But man, that offense, holy crap,
so
Josh
fun.
Allen is so much fun. He's peak levels. Get engaged and look what happens, man. All right, now, good thing for me too. Moving on to our first NFC team and one of my teams, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles, who actually I've been feeling pretty good about their whole team right now. I think their defense is playing outstanding football. The Panthers game, even in that game, they were playing good football, even though afterwards it didn't feel that way. I think, though, my biggest concern with him is not the defense. It's not the run game. Definitely not the run game. It is passing offense consistency. That's what I'm going to go with. That's how I'm going to frame this. This team, since week 5, their bye week, or their bye week, I believe is week 4, but since week 5, their week 5 bye week, I should say, they have the number 1 designed rush rate, 56.9%. Easily first. The league average is 40%. The Packers are in second at 49.5%. The difference between how much the Eagles run the ball or how frequently between them in first place and the Packers in second is the same difference between the Packers in second and the Commanders in ninth. They are pounding the frickin' rock, and that's what they should be doing. From weeks 1 through 4, they were 16th in design rush rate at 41%. So they've increased that by over 15%. Why that matters? Their formula has to be this. But to balance it, you have to be explosive through the pass game. And they are second in explosive pass rate. Very good. But their dropback success rate, which is a matter of consistency, that's on base percentage, middle of the pack, 12th, 14th, depending on which one you look at. That is where some of the concerns are. Anyone watch that Panthers game could see the concerns of that game. This last week, not so much. But it's, watching this team, that is going to be their, a possible Achilles heel, which I don't think I'm saying anything revelatory here. I think anyone that's paid attention to the Eagles, who is feuding right now? Oh, the quarterback and the receiver. Where do you think the concerns are going to be? The passing game a little bit, but it's still a good passing game because it can be so explosive. It's just that if they face these teams that load the box, that have more designer defenses, which is what happens in the playoffs, what do they get to? Can Jalen Hurts drop back, stay in the pocket, and nickel and dime and get those 6 to 15 yard gains that defenses are going to make them do? That is just what I have to see. They do it for stretches, but can they do it for a full game, 2 full games, possibly 4 full games if they don't get that week 1 bye week? We'll have to see, because so far it's always just been so up and down, even if they are explosive. So passing offense, consistency. Did you have any others on this one with the Eagles? Because I do think they are playing really good ball. Like, I feel real good about this Eagles team right now, just because their defense is just so good and the run game's so good.
Yeah, my concern was sort of in that vein. And what makes it so frustrating with the Eagles passing game, and, Jalen Hurts coming out after the game at the post-game presser, is that what you guys wanted to see? It's like, yeah, buddy, like, that's what we needed to see. We need to see you do this, but we also need to see you do it not in just one game. Yes. We also need to see you do it in a game that's not like against the Steelers style of defense. Like, that Steelers defense was particularly vulnerable to what Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown have always done really well together, which is they play the most single high in the league. They're pretty high in terms of man coverage of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And by the way, we know that Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, even if it's none of the, Kellen Moore does this, that, and the other. It's just like, no. We're talking like the offense 3 years ago. They're doing that. Okay. They've always been able to do that well. So to me, it wasn't even, I don't come away from that game thinking like, okay, problem solved. That's the formula, right? I mean, actually in a weird way, I think it would work really well against Detroit, who plays the most man coverage in the league. And we're going to get to them and some of the concerns about them, particularly on that side of the ball.
Pretty I think I'd paint that picture on that one.
Pretty easy one. I don't know that we'll have to do any sort of schematic deep dive on what are the problems for the Detroit Lions right now. But I actually would like this Eagles offense going against a Lions defense. It's very man coverage heavy. I mean, Jalen Hurts was awesome against man coverage against the Steelers. AJ Brown had 89 yards against man coverage. His touchdown. Devontae Smith had his touchdown against man coverage. Like that. This is what this team can fillet that, especially when we're working single high coverage, the middle of the field. Like, the middle of the field's closed anyways. So let's attack deep and outside the numbers. That it just leans into the strength of the quarterback and some of what they've always liked to lean into with AJ Brown. I'm more concerned about, what does this team look like if it's got to go against more of a zone heavy attack that really plays with the 2 high safeties. Because we've talked about this all year long, Nate. If you've got the 2 high safeties, there's going to be throws in the middle of the field, in the deep intermediate middle of the field, that if you can block it up and you can push it there and you've got route concepts that can make it work, you can do that. But I mean, I see a lot of teams like the Packers that are very high in terms of zone coverage. The Bucs, even we know the Bucs have always given the Eagles trouble with Todd Bowles versus Jalen Hurts. Even, I mean, the damn Vikings play the most 2 high coverage in the league, and they're 6th in terms of zone coverage. So some of those teams, or even the Rams, if they get in, and they're 9th in zone coverage rate, and they play a little bit of a mix of single and 2 high. But yeah, like some of these teams, I'm actually more interested to see if the passing game consistency issue crops up, as opposed to like their actual number 1 contender in the conference, which to me is still Detroit.
Now that we can kind of narrow down, okay, who are the possible matchups? All right. Like, I think the Eagles can win right now they'd be playing the Commanders. Well, not just soon, but also in the playoffs too. Is all right. Who can actually
9th
take this
in terms
away?
of man coverage, by the way, the Washington Commanders.
Because all this thing, that makes a lot of sense. But the Vikings, like, that would be, if I were handicapping it right now, I'd be like, they have a ton of the natural answers against this Eagles offense. They're good against the run, and they, of course, blitz. Hurts has been so up and down against the blitz his whole career. just kind of how he operates. I think the Eagles offensive line has been playing great, but it's just that that's something they can throw, that wrench that they can throw. Todd Bowles is still sitting there. And that is the boogeyman for Jalen Hurts is Todd Bowles, even if that Bucs defense is a little wonky right now. I mean, I feel like that you could just say that any week. But no, so this is a great point, bringing up the zone coverages. I wish it was a healthy Lions defense, spoilers, but it's just that would be another team that have possible answers as far as because they could stop the run. They're really good against the run, forcing them to be more one-dimensional. But I know I'm glad you brought up the press conference thing because it just always feels like, well, I still have the same complaints, Jalen. Yeah. Like I still need to, see you do it a lot more than just the Steelers who have one working corner, Joey Porter Jr., and that's about it. So, no, great point there. So we are going to take our first break, and then we'll come back with a few more contender concerns. Okay, we are back for more some more championship contender concerns. I just had to throw in all the C words. All right, next one is the Chiefs, defending back-to-back Super Bowl champions and AFC teams. So this is one that you are taking the lead on, Matt. What is your biggest concern for the Chiefs and their contendership?
Well, my immediate concern is that we're discussing Carson Wentz. We want to talk about another C word. That doesn't make me feel good. But in terms of like their concerns in winning the Super Bowl, which I think Mahomes will be healthy and he'll probably play on Saturday. Like it's typically how this stuff works with Mahomes. He'll probably play on Saturday.
How about 3 games in 11 days? How about that?
Yeah. No
sure,
big deal.
With a high ankle sprain, why not?
Great. Again, the fact that we're discussing Carson Wentz doesn't make me feel good. But bigger concern, I think, and this leads back into Mahomes and just the overall health of the offense. Let's live in a hypothetical world where some team is actually able to build a lead on Kansas City, maintain and hold a big lead. I mean, Nate, like what have we seen so far this year that would make you think that offense in Kansas City can shoot itself out of a problem? I don't know, man. I mean, it just, especially like, and I'm not talking about, okay, it's the final drive of the game and they need to overcome a 3-point deficit or it's a tied game and they need to get into field goal range. We've seen that a billion times that they can do that stuff and they can get you just enough to win a game. That's been my phrase with Kansas City all year. It's not only do they need just enough, they get just enough to win a game. I'm talking about like, let's say they play a team like Baltimore that's operating at a really high level offensively, or Buffalo that's operating at a really high level offensively. And by the way, this defense on that side has not been as good at this portion of the season than it was earlier in the season. So can that offense in Kansas City kind of get themselves out of a deficit? I know this isn't everything, but in terms of deep passing, Mahomes has just been objectively bad this year. According to PFF, quarterbacks with a sub 30% completion rate on 20-plus yard throws, it's Mahomes, it's Caleb Williams, and it's Anthony Richardson. You don't want to be in the Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson section of the program. Quarterbacks with a sub 70 passer rating on 20-plus yard throws. Same 3 guys plus Bryce Young. You don't want to be in the Bryce Young portion of throwing the ball 20-plus yards down the field, but that's where Mahomes has been. And I understand the receiver talent is what it is. The pass catching group is what it is. The pass protection is what it is. That's a huge concern. And probably like if we wanted to distill this down to one thing, I think it is the play up front and can they keep Mahomes clean? That's probably the one clean, quick, and dirty answer. But I do think Mahomes has been off the mark on deep passes. I mean, all the Xavier Worthy bros have let us know all year long, like, did you see this clip? Did you see this clip where Mahomes didn't hit him? So those plays can be found. I think all of this together, just can they get themselves out of a deficit if teams are playing pass, if they're rushing the passer well? I am concerned about that for Kansas City.
Yeah, they're 32nd in explosive play rate. And it's you don't have to be the greatest show on turf. You don't have to be the 2004 Vikings with Randy Moss or anything like that. I don't know why I'm bringing up early aughts references. There's been plenty of explosive offenses since then, but any of those explosive offenses that you think of, you don't have to be that, but you have to be above the benchmark. You have to at least show that you can get those explosive plays. And right now it always just feels that they are one half Xavier Worthy foot out of bounds or a half yard too far on the throw, or the pressure gets there. Mahomes can't set, and Mahomes can get throws off as well as anybody I've ever seen with tight pockets and without his feet set and everything. But still, it's a limitation when that left tackle gets beat in 1 second. When it's just, it's not the hitch and then there's a pressure. It's I hit the top of my drop and there's pressure. There's a guy, and it's the blind side, which is not as easy. I mean, it's the blind side. I mean, it's just in the word right there. It's not as easy to mitigate as a quarterback because it's feel. And it's like, okay, maybe I'm getting a little too antsy on that, as opposed to if it's coming from the front side and I can go up and around or anything like that. With the Chiefs, too, is that they don't like to chip help. They like to get, this is kind of the old West Coast roots of Andy Reid, is they want all 5 guys out on their pass route. So they don't, they do a good job of keeping the running backs out of protection and only needing him when necessary, but they don't want to sacrifice a tight end or a running back and then their routes. And they don't have the receiver room right now to win like true one-on-one. So that's why they need all 5 guys out. So then now you're just damned if you do, damned if you don't. All right, do we leave our left tackle on an island? All right, and then if you're in the AFC, that's Gregory Rousseau. Any of the other teams that they, AFC or the Ravens got some pass rushers, any of those guys that can get after you. And that is concerning because now you're just it's just uncomfortable with this whole offense. But I was looking at all their stats since Mahomes took over as a starter, and it's like, yeah, it's the lowest explosive play rate. I mean, I'm not throwing anything out here that's crazy, but what was crazy to me was this is the lowest yards after catch Mahomes has ever gotten from his per reception, 5.8 yards after catch per reception. It's still like top 10 in the offense. It's in the NFL. It's 6th in the NFL this year, but they're second in how many of their yards come after the catch as far as percentage wise. So this offense requires guys to break tackles and get it because Mahomes is having to operate underneath because they're running the ball more and because they can't protect to attack deeper. You want to attack deeper, you need to protect. So they're kind of, again, but do we protect? And this guy can't get open. And now our check down is late because he has to chip help. They have a lot of problems that they're trying to fill here. And it's still a successful offense. It's an efficient offense. Maybe in the playoff time, they crank it up. They've been always the outlier the last few years of like stats kind of just don't apply to them, like all these thresholds, because it's kind of hard to talk about them in a fair light like that. And just, I hate waving the way though, but it's just, that's another thing.
It feels stupid to just not talk about it, especially because what I think you brought up a really good point about the protection and then the fact they don't want to keep guys in protection. And then these receivers, I mean, I think Hopkins is still a solid player. And I think Worthy's fine. I've been critical of Worthy as a rookie, and I don't think I still am selling on the idea he'll ever be like a true high volume outside wide receiver. Mm-hmm. But even when those guys do get open, it takes time because Worthy is like a long strider getting open down the field. And when you face the second most man coverage since week 10, which this team has, like it's just like Hopkins can get open, but he's not a quick separation player anymore. And like, this is where they're really missing Rashee Rice. Even if Rice, I think, and like they've missed him all year long, the yards after catch stuff as well, but man, he would be such a perfect answer to some of these issues. Do you have any faith that like Marquise Brown comes back and can make some of this a little, he's not the make everything better type of player, but he can make some of this better because he's obviously slated to return, if not this week, in a pretty short order here.
He's not a yak guy either. I do think he'll open up the offense a little bit as far as attacking intermediate. Like that's where I think always Brown was his best at, like when he got to be a slot vertical guy. But it's just kind of like, all right. I would much rather, like you said, have Rice at 205 running a crossing route or a bubble and taking it for a first down as opposed to just a 4-yard gain. Like that's the thing is how this offense has to operate. They have the highest run rate ever since Mahomes has been a starter, and their run game is efficient, but it's not explosive. They need guys to create these explosive plays because they're attacking underneath. And Hollywood Brown is gets open vertically, catch, tackle. Not a catch, break a tackle, boom, now he's taking another 10 yards. So it does help. He's going to help. I think he does have talent and everything, but it's just not what they need. And
he's also not a man beater either. I just looking back at his reception perception data from last year, which he wasn't totally healthy last year. 17th percentile success rate versus man, but 51st against zone. Like I said, they're second in terms of the amount of man coverage they face since week 10. So it's funny, not to go on a Cardinals thing here for a second, but man, I'm looking at his route tree this year as every down X receiver, which isn't the best usage for him, but that was just what they're. How come they couldn't have Marvin Harrison Jr. run a slant on 23.8% of his routes? That's right. Crazy stuff. Anyways, not to go on a Cardinals thing, but that's just a whole nother discussion. But yeah, I mean, even Marquise Brown, the intermediate area, like I said, he's not really that quick separator that they kind of need at this point.
He's a run it's just they need. And they need Rashee Rice. I mean, that's the guy they need, and they thought they had him. Another thing too was I do want to say with this Chiefs team, because they're just winning so many ugly games. And I know there's been much said about this. They're third in first down differential, and in fact, how many first downs they get compared to the other team, only behind the Lions and the Eagles. That's got to matter somehow. I mean, it's not. This team is chasing first downs, not points, and it works for them. And I know it's not pretty. If it works for them though, and then they just throw out the Mahomes kind of okay, go do something when they need to. It's not sexy. It's kind of this is just what they are right now. I want more. I want the fireworks factory too, but this is just the makeup of the team. They need a few more pieces to get the vision that we want out of them. But this is what they are as they storm ahead with the best record in the NFL at 13-1. It's just, that's how I always feel when I'm talking about them. All right, moving on to an NFC team, and this is the Detroit Lions. And my biggest concern for the Detroit Lions is how they're going to pay for all the hospital bills. That's kind of what it feels mean, because I watched the offense again. They got into a hole against the Bills because the Bills were just supernova on offense, and just watching their offense do their thing. And then it's all right, well, they still got these guys, right? Well, then David Montgomery gets hurt. And it's okay, Jahmyr Gibbs is still super explosive, but and a good player. But the formula for this offense is to have two backs that can take those touches and take those carries. Okay, that's just the offense. And this defense that has been playing so well, one of the best run defenses in the league, feisty defensive backs, playing man coverage every snap, and it working. They'll get penalized, but it has been working and really throttling down a lot of offenses. Carlton Davis, broken jaw, I believe I saw. Aleem McNeil on IR. Aleem McNeil was probably going to make my all-pro team, at the end of the season. Linebacker injuries galore. Just every position you pick, there's injuries at. And not just, missing a week or two. IR, done. And that's it. That's my concern. Can they overcome this? It's so hard for me to even compare a team like this that's been doing so well to a team in the past. I'm well, this team did that and they overcame this, and that. The Patriots at one point were playing Troy Brown at DB. I still think that was Belichick just showing off back in the day. But this team, they tried, and they've done such a good job of mitigating. They lost Aiden Hutchinson, which was looking like a great tout by you for Defensive Player of the Year. And they had mitigate that. Okay. And then they got this injury at linebacker. They mitigated that. Okay. But now it's just one after another after another. And I'm watching this Bills team literally pick the guys that are the backups now and backups to the backups and just attacking them over and over and over. And that's the Bills in a regular season game. And I know Bills are one of the best teams, one of the best offenses. Guess what happens in the playoffs? You face these teams every single week. So that it's not fair to paint this team that a couple of weeks ago was this is the best team in the league, and I still feel good about them because they're going to play hard, and I still like the offense. It's just this is just so much to overcome, and it just doesn't feel fair to make it this tight or just this tidy, I guess, as a point. But that's kind of where we're at with the Detroit Lions. Anything to add to that? I feel sad saying all that.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it sucks. I mean, and it is hard to not think about what Dan Campbell said after the NFC title loss last year about how just hard it is to get back, and this is a great example of why it's really hard to get back, because sometimes it happens, and that's what's happened to the Lions this year is a lot of stuff has happened, and man, it's really unfortunate. It's cluster injuries and it's full unit devastation. I mean, that's really difficult to overcome when it's at all three levels of your defense. And some of those Ty Johnson plays that you were highlighting at the beginning of the game against Buffalo, it's a great example of, okay, well, we're the Buffalo Bills and we don't really have, they're still fully not playing Amari Cooper. I mean, he didn't even get a target in this game. They're not playing him every single snap. Keon Coleman's not a true traditional outside man beater. They're still playing Mac Hollins an absolute ton. It's not like they have those outside perimeter receivers we have Khalil Shakir. He's I think he's pretty good against man coverage, but like big splash plays. Well, we'll get Ty Johnson lined up on Quan Alexander, who you just like signed and is now playing significant snaps for you. And yeah, I just think they're going to run into a lot of teams like that in the postseason here. It's unfortunate. And the good thing is that the flip side of what we just talked about with Kansas City, there are few teams that I feel like, okay, you need to get yourself out of a deficit. I think the offense, even without Dave Montgomery, he's a wonderful player, but even without him, I think they still got enough firepower to get themselves out of a deficit. But still, it shouldn't have to be that in every single game, which is kind of what I feel like it's going to turn into with Detroit now at this point.
I know movie references are a grab bag for you. Have you seen Monty Python, The Holy Grail?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're the.
I don't live under that deep of a rock.
Okay, the Lions are the Black Knight. They're getting a limb cut off, and they're still biting. They're still trying to bite your legs off, bite kneecaps, of course. But that's literally what they are right now. But I mean, if they just lost, quote unquote, just lost Davis, okay, all right. If they just lost McNeil, all right. But it's like, those are like two of the best players. And as much as Jack Campbell's actually playing good ball, and they have other guys like DJ Reader's been good and all that, and Brian Branch is a star, all these things, it's just you need your stars, you need your needle movers, and as well coaches they're going to be and how hard they're going to play, it's just like over time, it becomes a blue chip battle, especially once you get into the playoffs. I mean, I'm just even thinking like, looking at matchups, like, okay, going against the Rams offense, Eagles offense, Bucks offense this year, Vikings offense can gash anybody, Packers offense, Commanders offense is good, Seahawks, okay, maybe they can hold against that. And then
Sam Howell playing.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, maybe that one. Yeah, all the offensive line. Yeah, okay, yeah, we got that one. And then Falcons and stuff. But it's just like, yeah, it's just tough. It's just really, really tough to go okay, I feel good about it, even if I do still feel like they'll find answers. It's just not as great as they were before. All right, getting on to another AFC team. We're going now to the Ravens, who we've mentioned a few times. Actually, feeling pretty good about. But the Baltimore Ravens, they just took down the Giants, right? And they just slaughtered them. It was like an early turnover, and it was just sacrificial Giants. All right, but for the Ravens, Matt, this is one of your teams. What is your biggest concern for them as a contender?
Well, happy Rashad Bateman week to those who celebrate, which is us.
Thank you.
But us. Beyond that, I think this is actually the hardest one for me to pick out in terms of the thing I was concerned about, which is funny because a few weeks ago or like a month ago, I would have said, okay, defense, right? Defense is a glaring issue. Yeah. But since week 10, they're 7th in dropback success rate allowed. Like the defense has sort of started to come together. Mm-hmm. Now, I think we could definitely say like it's probably a good, not great pass rush. And if you look at what I've said this all season long, that while like the perimeter, especially in the fantasy world, we talk about like, okay, perimeter receivers going against the Ravens, good matchup. Well, actually, if you really look at it, it's really the middle of the field where they've given up most of the big production. On the season, 83.5 yards per game over the deep and short middle of the field, 10.2 yards per attempt, 83.5 yards per game over the middle is the most in the NFL. So it's like that's where the issues have been. And even if you look since week 10, this stretch where I've said they're 7th in dropback success rate, you look at the teams that they've kind of gone. It's been the Bengals. It's been the Steelers, the Chargers, the Eagles, and then the Giants. Okay, so we throw out the Giants because that was just they blew them out. And yeah, like Malik Neighbors is getting downfield passes. Okay, who cares? Like they're blowing out the Giants.
Go have fun.
But like,
go have fun.
Yeah, go win some people fantasy playoff matchups. Have a good time. But like if you look at Bengals, Steelers, Chargers, Eagles, I would say the teams that they've been able to hold their own against have actually been, in terms of defense, not necessarily winning the game, so they lost to the Steelers, but Steelers don't really activate the middle of the field. Eagles, we just talked about that. They don't really activate the middle of the field, but like Bengals, Chargers, that's a little bit more of where they're trying to live, especially because the Bengals this year have done so much with moving Jamar Chase around. I would say those are the games that I started to feel like, okay, yeah, don't feel like the Bengals put up a number on them, right? Obviously, the Chargers, they won that game, but still, like Lad McConkey got his at times in those games, in those moments. So it's like, to me, that's where I'm a little bit concerned just with this team overall is when they face a team that they have to go, middle of the field type coverage, like that's maybe my biggest concern. But even like I said, that feels like a little bit of a nitpick. I came away feeling a bit better about Baltimore than maybe I would have thought like a month ago.
I'm right there with you. I felt like they were my biggest kind of reset team, I think, maybe in my brain doing this exercise. Them and another team we're about to talk about, but where I was like, oh, okay, this has been better. And I watched this last week's game. I've kind of watched the Ravens almost every week, but yeah, it's gotten way better. Nate Wiggins is playing really well. Their outside corner, they drafted in the first round, good player. Not the biggest guy. You can run at him a little bit, but he'll try. No. He'll try. I appreciate guys that at least try. But I thought that was my first bullet point. I was like, explosive passes. And then I did the same thing you did. I looked since week 8. I did the last 8 weeks, and they're kind of middle of the pack, middle of the pack pass defense, middle of the pack, explosive pass rate allowed. Not as for the first 8 weeks of the season, it was dead last, 31st, 30th, dead last, and all those types of metrics. Yeah, but the middle of the field thing is a great point. And that's the Roquan Smith weird season kind of going on. Good against the run, just a step slow against the pass. And then just, is it an injury? Is it age? I don't know.
New scheme, too much, right? Communication issues.
Yeah. It's just something that's curious about with them this year. So no, that's a really good one. Kind of middle pass defense, I guess, would be the one, because their run defense has been good all year. They don't let up a lot of explosive runs. They make it a slog. So maybe it's just, I didn't look up their play action numbers, but maybe if that's part of it too, getting Roquan kind of going up and down. Their safeties are very aggressive. That's another thing too. They're ball hawks by nature. So maybe that's how you kind of catch them as well. Maybe even just looking at some of the AFC teams that they'd have to go against. There's only a couple I feel real good about with that, but I'm not really worried about that Texans run offense, no. But some of those teams do attack over the middle. So that could be a curious thing to pick at. So that was a good one. I like that. Now that's a thread I'm going to pull at now.
Yeah. I'm looking at play action stuff for Baltimore now. And no shock that obviously Jacksonville has given up the most yards on play action
bottom of everything.
all season long.
Guess who has bad linebacker play?
I know this is just quick and dirty stuff. Like 6th highest passer rating on play action over the course of the season, 9 touchdowns, 2 picks. We got to look at it more recently, like if it's gotten any better.
They're 20th in EPA per play since week 8 against play action. So yeah, it matches with what you're saying there. And then their success rate wise, they are 16th since week 8. So yeah, so like below average, middle of the pack, kind of that. But no, that matches what you're saying though. That when you have such a good run defense, like being a kind of a gash or a hole that you can go after, teams are going to go after that and pick at that. And you look at the teams in the AFC playoffs, you got teams that like play action. So that is something that they'll pick at. All right, we're going to take one last break, and then we'll come back with a few more concerns for our contenders. Time for an NFC team. Time for a team that used to be near and dear to my heart, but I disowned them, burned all their gear in 2005. That is the Minnesota Vikings, who actually, feeling pretty good about the Vikes.
They're like your team, bro. I know
they're kind of become my team this year. Yeah. It's kind of weird. Yeah. I know. Trust me. I have you're gonna have to see a shrink about this. There's just a lot going on here that's really confusing. I got confusing feelings about this, but parsing through the numbers, I do that. I like to look at the combined success rate, explosive play rate, sex rate, suplex rate. One of my followers suggested.
There we go.
I really like that suplex rate. The
family friendly.
Yeah, I like that. It kind of fits. Wrestling fan. They're the only team that are top 10 on offense and defense in this metric. 8th in offense, 4th in defense. I think that's significant. That they are a team on early downs, especially, that are been consistent on both sides of the ball. My concern, even though I just said that they've been consistent, my concern is team volatility, specifically their quarterback and specifically their defense. They are actually built to go on a run. And this is why I kind of keep coming back to the Vikings. It's just they have a quarterback that can hunt the big plays. They have an offensive design that's meant to hunt big plays. They will take 4 sacks. I can only imagine the offensive line coach complaining to his wife at night about the sack numbers because that's all they care about. But wins and points are really nice. So they are a team that will take those negative plays yardage wise and offset them with chunk after chunk after chunk. And it's just every week, it's some new layer that this offense is adding. Addison unlocking, Hawkinson's getting healthier and healthier. And of course, Justin Jefferson, the run game is pretty solid. Like they are able to at least rely on this run game when they need to. Is it the most kind of like at you and physical? No. And that may be a concern maybe I'll bring up as well. But I do think it can be explosive and they can rely on it, which is a big difference from offenses the Vikings have had in the past. But they just have that, I just said they can go on a hot streak. Darnold is dice roll Darnold. He can go on a cold streak too. And that's really what the concern can be, is that what if he just doesn't shoot himself out of this rut? Like that's kind of what they do. Hey, negative plays are happening. Keep going. Just keep pushing. Keep shooting. That's what the offense is based out of. That can crap out. In the playoffs, that can just crap out. When you're based on hunting those explosive plays, which is something that you need, and I'll keep emphasizing this for the next month and a half because it is something I believe in. I even did a little thing. I think like the 14 playoff teams, they're all in like the top, I would say like 12 of them are in the top 15 in explosive pass rate. Like it's something that matches, it correlates, but also their defense. I've seen this defense. I think maybe that Rams game's in my head a lot, where if you have an offense that can run it and is consistent running and a quarterback that's willing to hang in there and can read blitz looks and read funkiness, they can get gashed. Now, how many teams have that though? That is where I kind of come back, is the Rams do. All right, look at the other NFC teams that they might face. The Lions could do this. They have gashed this defense in the past, but maybe the defense can't hold up. You got to have negative game script. Eagles, great run game. Not sure how Hurts can handle the blitz and all the funkiness and the drop 8. So that's TBD. Bucks, improved run game, pass game. They can go hot and cold. Rams already talked about. Packers have shown that they can gash this. So to me, it's just that teams that they might face in the playoffs actually have a path against this defense that can give a lot of offenses issues. Really like the defense. Of course, it's a top 10 unit to me. Just think that they can get got against the good game plans and the good quarterback. So that would be my concern, is that if they don't add maybe that little playoff layer, I do think Flores will, but maybe just something to limit maybe some of the punches that they take, some of the haymakers that they take, but easier said than done because this is kind of their identity as well. It's kind of hard for me to go, stop doing what you're doing that works so well. That's just hard for me to say. So I would say defensive and quarterback volatility would be my concern if I too long didn't read this.
No, yeah. And I mean, they're a live by the sword, die by the sword defense, in addition to being live by Sam, die by Sam on offense. And there's been a lot more living than dying. Nobody cares about my fantasy teams, Nate, but it was probably justice for all the Sam Darnold oligarchy talk that I did at you earlier this year, that my dynasty team in the Reception Perception Sicko League, it's like people that subscribe to my website, I was actually riding Sam Darnold as one of my Superflex quarterbacks into a playoff run. And of course, last night just didn't get enough to. Caleb Williams is the other Superflex quarterback. So he's he's the guy I'm really mad at.
So
actually,
you're just watching it like,
this is like, please, Sam. It's actually it's really Justin Jefferson. I mean, come on, catch that pass going in the end zone. We're moving to the next round. And again, Bears be normal, and we're not having this conversation. But it was probably justice. All the junk I talked about Sam Darnold oligarchs, and my Sam Darnold dynasty team does not get to move on. But anyways, like I said,
one dynasty league, I traded him for picks and Tucker Kraft, and that was a lot of fun. It was fun to get some Tucker Kraft shares.
Tucker Kraft also umbrella. On this team too. This is a weirdly like a Nate Tice dynasty team. Hey, Chuba Hubbard too. And anyways,
it's perfect.
Nobody cares about that. Too? No, somehow no. Got any thoughts on Deontay Johnson? I don't. Anyways, nobody cares about that. But what is interesting with this Vikings team, and sort of on defense especially, we have seen them go off type before. I think about that Week 13 Cardinals game where they threw like a bunch of man coverage at Arizona. So we've at least seen some of that. Like, and again, you're leaning into man coverage. You're still leaning into some volatility, especially with the cornerback talent that they have there. But it is at least like an alternate pitch that they can throw out as opposed to being super zone heavy and things like that. So we do have 2 matchups down the stretch. Week 17 against Green Bay. That one will be super, I think, instructive for what we're going to see going into the postseason. Week 18 against Detroit. Like, Lions might have the top, I mean, they might still be competing for the top seed, and Minnesota themselves might be stuck at like the 5th seed or something like that. So a bit tricky, just like what the motivations are there. But those are 2 matchups I think will at least be interesting to watch from their defense perspective, because those are definitely 2 of the offenses that I think could give them trouble. Physical ground games, even if Montgomery's not out there, physical ground games that can kind of take it to you at the point of the attack. And I'm definitely feeling better about Green Bay and their ability to attack downfield after what they did in Seattle on Sunday night.
Yeah, feeling overall pretty good about Green Bay. I'll talk about them in a sec. But yeah, this is the Vikings are the 7th favorite right now, according to BetMGM, plus 1,300, 13-1. And that I just feel better about them. I watching that game Monday and then reviewing some of the stuff the last couple of weeks, it's just been like, wow, they're coming up with the answers, and I'm just feeling better ever since the second half of the Cardinals game, really. Yeah. And maybe it's just because Darnold's just been on fire. So, but I don't know. The guys are getting healthier, and seeing Hawkinson getting healthier, that really just, they're adding more layers and answers on that offense. That the offensive line's not great. Like, they do a really good job of making sure that they're better than what they really are, I think, especially in the interior. So maybe that is another weakness, is offensive interior. But the thing is, so far, they just keep attacking because they change up the protections and they do a good job with it. So, yeah.
To me, it's Addison's emergence that's really changed the way I think about this team, because I've been like not low on Addison, but I've just been kind of like
lukewarm, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. Lukewarm is probably a good way of putting it. I had him ranked as like a, late 1st, early 2nd type of prospect. So right about where he went, had no problems with where they took him, especially with the idea in which the Vikings took him, which is, hey, you're going to have so many easy looks. You're going to face a lot of just single like zone coverage type looks, and you're going to be able to smash those. Well, guess what? That's exactly what he's doing right now. I mean, since week 11, he is almost 3 yards per route run against zone coverage. He's been, all right, if you're dedicating extra attention to Justin Jefferson, we're going to smash whatever like in breaker, some more outbreakers too, which has been nice. I think him putting up this type of production has been, again, just sort of maybe challenging my preconceived notions on him, that he's not quite in the Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, like that. Man, you've got a guy that, like, what would he look like as a number 1 on another team? I don't know if I'd feel that way about Addison. I definitely didn't feel that way going into the season, but he's at least pushing me on that perspective, that I just think that him and Hawkinson being such a man coverage beating tight end, that really just gives, again, you said, so many answers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like a 1B is a 2A. It's like, just that little tier difference, but I'm totally with you. Yeah, it's just really cool. Maybe because I've just been paying attention to this offense for a while, and having Jefferson there and just seeing how O'Connell uses those opportunities is cool. But now Addison's taking advantage of them. So, yeah, and they're giving him more touches with it. All right, moving on to the AFC, going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we mentioned were in that battle, Pennsylvania, against the Eagles this last week without George Pickens. Did I share you the on-off George Pickens stats?
No, but you know what? You should do it, because that's actually my concern here is George Pickens' hamstring.
He has to play. It's like, it's not even like a question. He has to be on the field. This was going into last week, but with Pickens, they're like 17th in success rate, 18th in passing success rate, 8th in explosive pass rate. Russell Wilson was 2nd, just among quarterbacks, 10th in EPA per dropback. Without Pickens on the field, 31st in offensive success rate, 30th in passing success rate, 17th in explosive pass rate, which is huge for this team, tied for 23rd in EPA per dropback. So they went from, above average overall offense to a bottom 5 offense without Pickens on the field. It feels that way to me anyway. So what is your concern for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, Matt?
Yeah, my concern is George Pickens' hamstring, and like how when is he going to be available? That was what I had even prior to that. And I mean, yeah, like we saw in week 14, no Pickens, right? Surprise, kind of late game inactive. Great. You can beat the Jameis Winston Browns without George Pickens. You go to Philadelphia. You go to Philadelphia in Week 15. You're not beating the Eagles. You're not even going to come really. I mean, and I know the Eagles absolutely suffocated them in the second half. 2 drives in the second half. It's unbelievable stuff.
Yeah.
Just what a display of power and like force by Philadelphia in that game. But still, you're not coming away with Calvin Austin as your leading receiver beating a true blue contender like that. So yeah, I've been like I'm kind of high on the Steelers, and like I think they could win a playoff game. Also TJ Watt's health is something to discuss here. Like their best players on either side of the ball are dealing with injuries right now. That's a pretty big concern. It's not as like I know the Lions are sitting there like, oh, cute, we just one good player. But I mean, this team is
the Chris Jericho list.
Yeah,
that just
right.
keeps going.
this team is a thin margin for error team, and like you take out Pickens, who is a difference maker. I've been super impressed with them all year long. Like, yeah, I mean, they're facing Baltimore. They're facing Kansas City, who I know I said I struggle with them in terms of like, can they dig themselves out of a hole? Well, you're probably not putting the damn Chiefs in a hole if you don't have George Pickens fully healthy there. Bengals in Week 18, like there's a chance that they could lose the division to the Ravens, and then you're go on the road, and it's just not as much of a favorable situation in the postseason. And I think if Pickens is not available, that's a big problem.
That's it. I mean, we just keep saying with this team, it's like, yeah, I trust the defense. Like even though they give up those long drives, but I do. I think their defense is a good defense, especially with Watt healthy. It's just that the offense needs explosive plays. Otherwise, it's just going to be 4 yards, not even 4 yards, 4 inches in a cloud of dust type of offense. Like it's just, that's the design of it, but they don't have the horses to open it up. Like you have to attack over the top and underneath in some way, shape, or form. Some teams do it passing wise, some teams do it rushing wise. You do it with screens, you do it with bubbles. There's different ways for everybody. But this team is a classic run first, shot play offense. When you take out the shot plays and your run offense isn't as good as that, I mean, it's not a great run offense. They try, and I like the designs. It's just that they're average, average at best. And some of that's the running back talent and running back carries, but that's a off-season issue. But I would say, if you take away the explosive passes, it's just a typical Steelers team. Like typical meaning the last few years, even if the defense might be a little bit better. So yeah, with you, that's it. Pickens' hamstring. I mean, it really comes down to that. I would have that guy better give him 5 treatments a day.
Yeah.
Icing it, like everybody making sure it's good. Okay, you're good here at practice.
Calling him, making sure, hey, buddy, we're doing all the things.
Hey, no need to walk down Carson Street, man. I got you. I'll go get lunch for you. Like, that's what they're doing now in Pittsburgh. I got my Yinzer cred. It's one of my favorite delis there. It's South Side.
There you go.
I don't remember much, but it was a good time. It was a GA pit. Moving on to, oh man, they can get after it there. Bicycle bar too. They had I think it was literally called the Bicycle Bar. They had a burger with peanut butter on it, which sounds disgusting. And don't knock until you try it though. And it was homemade peanut butter and all this stuff. It was like a really vegan friendly restaurant too, or bar, and they just had this peanut butter burger that was so good. I know it's disgusting, but it was good. I swear.
You're like peanut butter on a burger and vegan. I mean,
it with bacon.
Like, I'm out on this.
Yeah, I know. That's what cracked me up. It was like this healthy vegetarian vegan place, but they had the best like burgers. Like that was the only meat they had was just burgers, and it was so good. But anyways,
I'm very confused.
It's a good spot. Going on to the Bucs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I don't think I enjoyed, well, that's a lie because the Bills offense. I don't think I enjoyed more Week 15 film than watching the Bucs offense.
Oh, hell yeah.
Baker was chucking that pigskin. Holy crap. And the run game was awesome. The offensive line, which we've gushed about, but I just want to continue to gush about, was they are on top of their game. They're talented. They are just so smart. Watching against the Chargers, who run more defensive line twists and games than anybody. I wish I could have a stat service that had it, but I swear they do. I swear they have more movement than anybody. Bucs offensive line, their communication was so cool to watch. And I outright love their run game. Bucky Irving is a football 301 all-star. Just the whole run game. I just loving everything that they're doing right now. My concern, can the defense hang? Can they hang? Like, that is really where I'm at. I am trusting Liam Cohen. I'm trusting the offense. Baker's going to have some volatile moments. I think we know what Baker is. He can get hot, though. He's going to try every throw. If Mike Evans is out there, this is a good passing game still. The other pieces are kind of falling into place. Man, the run game's good, like I said. So really, it's just, can the defense be consistent? Maybe that's a better way to put it. Like, they battled some injuries, some guys coming in and outside the lineup. Just think some of the defense has been able to get gashed a little bit, especially in the pass game, especially their linebacker play. It's actually a lot of similar discussion about what we had with the Ravens, where it's like, attacking over the middle. Those blitzes aren't just as venomous, as aggressive as they were before. Some of the Bulls' funkiness, like, I think you can gash them a little bit easier when they're not doing that. He's always had very heavy tendencies, Todd Bowles. It's actually why I kind of like studying him, because I can just, for these show purposes, I can just go, hey guys, on first down, they do this. Like, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, you and Kirk Cousins both, pal.
Yeah, right. Oh, I know, right? They do this, they do this. But when you kind of lose the talent, that those tendencies become a glaring weakness as they kind of, people focus on those. That's just me sitting in my chair in Vegas. Coaches do this, studying it for 100 hours a week. They're going to notice these things. So it's really just that. I'm not saying this defense is bad or anything. Looking at kind of, some of the metrics, even in the past 8 weeks, they're like 12th, 11th, since week 8, they're 11th in passing success rate. Like, so it's just like, they're sitting there like, okay, but they can get gashed. Like, I just see it. I see teams being able to get after them, especially if you block it up. So if they're able to just kind of hold on to that, hold on to their hats, that's really my concern. I'm a liar. They're 27th in passing success rate since week 8. So that is concerning. Yeah. No, but there's explosive passes I think I had. But it's just that they can get gashed if you block it up and everything. So that is my biggest concern, is the Bucs passing defense.
Yeah, pretty easy one to me as well. It's just it's the pass defense, and it's easy to beat if you can block it up, if you can identify the pressures, which is why Kirk is, beyond the fact that I think he's just wearing down physically at this point. It's been kind of like a slow start physically. Ramp down physically for Kirk Cousins. But those two matchups against Tampa, like so much of his year-long production is in these two games, because I think they're a well-designed offense in Atlanta. You could block it up, and he just is easily okay, blitz is coming from here, zone is here. Like, I can get to this guy over the middle, and they have the right weapons to do it too. But shoot, if the damn 2024 Falcons can find a freaking formula against your defense, I think any of these other NFC contenders can do it. But yeah, I definitely wanted to give a shout out to Baker for that week 15 performance. The Chargers have been one of the most too high heavy teams all year long, and have been like a top 5 efficiency team when they play too high, and Baker just launching it against the defense like that. So impressive. So yeah, I'm hopeful that, and I feel pretty confident they're going to be the NFC South representative in the postseason. And yeah, I can't wait to watch their playoff game. That's for sure.
I am too. Yeah, I know. I've really liked this offense. I'm really enjoying it. You've been kind of touting it the whole year. I've kept an eye on it, and yeah, it's and they're getting better too, even if some Baker stuff and everything. Yeah. So since week 8, the defense though, they're 10th in EPA per rush, 21st in EPA per pass. That's the stat I looked at. So it's middle, a little below average there, but yeah, the offense at least is going to be entertaining. All right, moving on to our last AFC team, our last team for this exercise. Apologies to the Commanders and Broncos and everything like that, just kind of keeping you on the back burner right now. These are the teams that are a little bit above you. So we're going to the Houston Texans, which is one of your teams, Matt. What is your biggest concern for the Texans? Because I think I know mine without even having to look up too much about this one.
Yeah, do you want to go at this together? The offense is like mid at best. Best. Yeah. Yeah. Not good.
Yeah. That's rose covered glasses too. Battle red colored glasses too.
Oh man. Yeah. Their defense just completely took apart Tua in this most recent game. A lot of impressive stuff from them. I think they baited him into things, and I thought just the defense has been really fun to watch all year long. It's not perfect. They do a lot. I'm not saying that the Texans are poorly coached. Don't put it out on the internet that I'm saying they're poorly coached. They do a lot of things that like poorly coached teams do. You know, a lot of penalties, a lot of busts on offense, particularly up front. I don't know, man. I just don't feel great about what I just cannot imagine what the offense looks like in the postseason that allows them to go on like a multi-game run. I just can't see it, which is startling because they have a top 5 receiver, most likely, in Nico Collins. They have a quarterback that I felt really good about coming off of his rookie season. I still think he will be fine long term. Just got a lot. I mean, that's it though. I looked this up last on Sunday because, you know, Joe Mixon, obviously a disappointing game. He's coming off an injury. He's in like, from in terms of like fantasy points per game, he is like in the Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry group, which in terms of NFL impact is such fake news. They're 31st in rushing success rate in the games that Mixon plays. Like,
so it's not even like, oh, just wait when he's healthy out there.
Exactly. No. And I by the way, I don't even think it's like a Mixon, like a big Mixon issue. I think he's been like a fine addition for them this year. I just think their run game stinks. And the offense overall is not good. So yeah, that would easily be the biggest concern.
No, it's terrible. Their offensive line coach and their run game stuff is not good. And they're trying to move guys around, you know, Juice Scruggs play multiple spots. Like, I mean, they're trying like everything. They're throwing stuff at the wall. And yeah, they're dead last in rushing success rate overall. I'm glad you brought up the Mixon stat too. The fact that you're worse than the Raiders run game with all this investment in it, you know, like Laramie Tunsil in theory is better than any Raiders offensive lineman, like just run behind left. I mean, the 49ers have made this work for years. They only had one workable offensive lineman and they still have awesome run games. I know, you know, there's other differences too, but you can make this work. Like, I don't think Shaq Mason is outright awful. Like, you know, he was good last year. What the hell happened? Brandon Thornton, I think I had him as a second team All-Pro. I had him as kind of the short list for it. And now he just looks even worse. And just when you see these vets that have played so many games making mental busts, that is when I'm like, what? Okay, there's something happening here with the teachings. The Packers game was the one for this Texans team that I was just so confused about what was going on there. Like, just had no idea like what was being taught, what was being kind of like, I mean, Dalton Schultz was busting, Laramie Tunsil were busting, all these vets that have been, you know, signed to extensions are making all these mental busts. And this is year 2 of this offense. So yeah, it's offensive line play. I mean, that's really it. Cause you can mitigate some of this, but once it's playoff time, if you haven't, you don't have to have the best run game ever. You don't have to be the Eagles. You don't have to be these crazy great run games, but you have to be above a threshold to win games in the playoffs. And now they're like not even near the threshold. It's not like, oh, if they do this, maybe this. It's like they're not even close to being acceptable. So it's just hard for, like you said, to kind of like, all right, how are they going to handle the playoffs when teams are going to focus in on that? So I'm right there with you. Defense is good. Like, I mean, they got a pass rush that's good, and their young players are coming up, you know, really ascending on that side of the ball. Just on offense.
Stingley's been awesome this year. I mean, so just incredible. He was awesome in week 15 in particular. Yeah,
I gave him a game ball on the Sunday show because it was fantastic what they're doing. Yeah, and they're throwing changeups now. They got Tua a bunch of times. Yeah, it's frustrating, but it's like you can have a quarterback, you can have a defense, and it's just like if you don't have the line at least be tolerable, it just can kneecap your entire season. That was the last kind of big concern. Do you want to do one quick hitter? Do you have any? I had one for the Packers, and mine is just defensive, like high upside. What is? I feel okay about the Packers defense, but what are they without turnovers? That's kind of where I'm at. I love the offense. Offense is sick. They explosive passes, run game is getting there with consistency, and also Josh Jacobs was running really well. And then also they do all the Jaden Reed stuff. Jordan Love has the highs of anybody. That whole Darnold discussion about, you know, he can get hot. Love easily can get hot. Like, and you can ride him to playoff wins. Really, it's just defense. I like the blitzes they're doing, and some of the defensive disguises are good. Like they're doing a lot of cover 3, rotate to 2, cover 2, rotate to 3, and that's like it though. So layers to the defense, I think would be the concern there. But I just had I wanted to talk about the Packers before we wrap it up. You have anything?
Yeah, no, Packers. That's a good one. That would be the only concern for them because I'm with you. I think their offense is sick.
Yeah.
And like even if they have so rarely opened it up. I mean, at least going into last week, they were 32nd in neutral pass rate, but I think we have the pass catching talent here to open it up. In fact, I kind of wish that. I mean, you and I are Jaden Reed bros. I'm sure you have the same feeling me of like, oh, I'd love to see some more Jaden Reed. That'd be great. But yeah, I mean, like they've got talent there. Romeo Dobbs having a great season. So I feel really good about what they have to offer. I guess in the NFC West, like the obvious concern for Seattle is pass protection. And now you have like the world's biggest sack eater about to go to like the sack buffet there in Seattle. That's a big concern in Sam Howell if he has to start a game. But for the Rams, it's just, I think overall secondary play and like if they can get themselves into a shootout. And I feel really good about that. Maybe a little bit of like, if someone could take away Puka Nacua, which no one seems to be able to do, Cooper Kupp at this point in his career, is he like a guy that you can, I know he can be productive, but can he be threatening down the field? Like, yeah. Some of these ancillary pass catchers, but again, nobody has seemingly been able to take away Puka Nacua, so maybe that's not an issue. I don't know.
Yeah. Commanders, it's your overall defense, same thing, pass defense. I think Broncos for me, it's just offensive explosiveness. I think passing and running, I think just that it's just a little too volatile right now. Once they get outside the opening script. So that's the one. I trust the Broncos defense though. Yeah, no, good with the Rams too. We were handicapping the NFC West and you were trying to talk me out of my Rams.
You were, you were right on that.
And trust me, I was with you after a couple of weeks, but now I'm like, hey, actually, wait, hold on. So no, the Rams are playing good ball right now. That's why they are in the lead in the NFC West. God, that just feels like every day I look at that changes. But that is it for our concerns. That was fun. Concerns for contenders with a little one hits at the end there. Closing out today, Charles and I will be back on Thursday to preview week 16. Oh my God, week 16. We're almost there. I am Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice. Matt, where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, Matt Harmon _BYB. We are very, very close to the end here, able to say goodbye soon to some of these wayward operations and just focus on these good teams we talked about today.
I love it. Trim the fat. We'll see you at free agency. We'll see you guys after the combine, and then we'll talk.
We'll see you in hypothetical land. How about that?
Yes.
In the offseason?
Anyway, once you guys hire a new coach, what does this mean? Can't wait for those discussions. They'll be great. If you guys are doing a great job, but keep sending in those mailbag questions to football301 mailbag at yahoosports.com, or leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to jump to the front of the line. We have a couple sitting there, so thank you guys so much for sending those in and giving us those reviews. On top of the reviews, subscribe to us, follow us, rate us, like I said, or watch us on YouTube on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel. Thanks to Brett Stone behind the scenes. Thank you to Matt for joining me as always. Thank you all for listening. See you guys next time.